Then what happens? This hematoma will proliferate and form a fibrous tissue, yeah, on which what happened? Deposits the osteoblast, yeah. And what happened? Soft callus will form already, yeah. You know what soft callus, yes. Yeah? So immature callus and periosteal callus will form, yeah. Then the next phase is called as what happened? Formation of hard bony callus already, yeah. At one point, what happened? This bony callus will unite, and what happened? It becomes strong, and that time we call it as consolidation, yeah. So the third stage is called as what happened? Consolidation, where the bones end of both the bones get united. The last phase is called as remodeling. What is remodeling? It takes years, like 1 to 2 years, maybe, for the bone to look how it was. So now you can see bone a little bit bulged already. Yeah? So for the bone to restore how it was, like until before the fact, how it was to a condition, how it was before the fracture. It takes years, and that phase is called remodeling. So we have 4 stages of bone healing that if you open literature. So first stage is stage of hematoma. Then this hematoma will proliferate to form fibrocartilaginous callus formation here. Then you see what bony callus formation, that is immature callus and periosteal callus will form already. Then please, after this, add this phase. It is called consolidation. What is consolidation? That means what happened? The bone, this immature callus and periosteal callus will become hardened, and use the word called as consolidation. Next is what happened? Remodeling. It will take years. So every bone, every bone
So we can't hear you properly.
Excuse me, sir. We can't hear you properly.
Sir, I'm sorry, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me, doctors, now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, doctors, I think something technical. Here we have what happened. So far we studied terminologies. Yeah. So now we.
Sir, again, we can hear you.
One minute, doctors. 1 minute.
Okay, sir.
No, sir.
Can you hear me, doc? Hear me now, doctors. Hello.
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Thank God, man. So there is some problem. Okay, so we move on to the next part of our today's lecture. It is methods of examination in trauma and orthopedic patient. Yes, schematically, how to examine the patient, how to write case history. So during this semester, you'll be writing case history. Yeah, so it is mandatory. Yeah, unfortunately, you'll be having only virtual patients. Yeah, so how to write. Yeah, I will be there to assist you, give you guidelines how to write case history. Yeah, so everything when we want to examine a patient, everything start with complaints of patient. Yes. So what do you mean by complaint? Complaint is the outspoken dissatisfaction of what of patients' own health condition. Yeah. So It can be detected by carried out by what active interrogation, yeah, of our patient already, yeah. So complaints, first thing. So in complaints, in your case history, you'll be writing what patient says. So what patient can tell you? Patient can complain of pain. Patient can complain of what? So here trauma oriented. A patient can complain of pain. Patient can complain of edema, maybe complain of bleeding. Patient complain that he or she cannot do this thing or cannot do that thing. Yeah. That is limitation of what ability, the functional ability of a person, yeah, because of trauma. He'll be explaining you. So you'll fix it out in simple words, what patient says. Next thing is what history of disease. So in history of disease, it's very important for us to put this question to patient: where the patient had the trauma, when the patient had trauma, why, how the patient had trauma, yeah, why this trauma arose, yeah. So why, we have to put this question: why, when, how, why, how and where, yeah. All this information gives us. For an example, when we put the question why you got the trauma, yeah, so it gives us an idea: is it accident or it is intentional trauma? How the patient got the trauma? It gives us gives us address. Is it a direct mechanism of trauma? Patient has an indirect mechanism of trauma. Yeah, when it gives us duration. When, yeah, how long before the patient had a trauma? So do we have to do some manipulation now, or we can wait? Yeah, where the trauma happened, yeah, it gives us alarm, yeah. So localization, especially, also place where the patient also had got trauma, yeah. So both information gives already. So all these details should be mentioned in your history of disease. Next information that has to be written is also about who, when, and where. Who gave first medical aid, when they gave, where they gave, yeah, and what was the result of rendering first medical aid? Is it adequate or non-adequate? So this thing should be mentioned, and you should write after what happened, giving medical aid, yeah, after how many minutes he or she is brought to the hospital, yeah. This is very mandatory to write in your case history. Next, history of life, yeah. So history of life, I will not stop by, yeah, but you pay attention, yeah, to any family oriented, yeah. So genetic condition, yeah. So here, for an example, we can see a family, yeah, leukemia of osteogenesis imperfecta, yeah, congenital osteogenesis. So look for any musculoskeletal dystrophic changes that happens in family condition. Yeah, if it is present, you will write. Next, general objective condition, as usual, that you follow in therapy and surgery. Yeah, then comes to the local status. So that's what we are going to sit and focus on. Yeah, so I will. So general objective examination will go already. Yeah, so here comes to our local status already. Yeah, so here once again, when came to our system review, yeah, so once again it starts how standard with all cases that you do everywhere. Yeah, it is same only. Here we do inspection, yeah, inspect the region, yeah, palpate the region, auscultate the region, investigate for any function of the movement, and followed by radio X-ray and other additional method of investigation. Yeah, so inspection, what can be found by inspection? You can talk about what happened, appearance of the patient, yeah, next position of the patient. Is he in active position? Yeah, that means what happened, patient can do everything by himself or herself, yeah, or patient is in passive position. That means you can move, patient cannot do anything by himself, yeah, or forced posture, yeah, posture to relieve pain, yeah. Determine the static of deformation, yeah, inspect the region of lesion, yeah. So here we can see, yeah, by inspection we can see edema a little bit, yeah, edema extended beyond the joint can be revealed, yeah, or localized swellings can be found already. You can differentiate. Next, you can see bruise, yeah, by inspection, yeah, we can compare, we can see muscle wasting, yeah, by inspection we can see what angular deformation we can find over here, doctor. Who can tell me? Is it normal or not normal? This type of deformation.
Geno valum.
Very good. Yeah, Geno, yeah, in Latin, yeah, knee, yeah, and it has what deformation? Geno?
Valgum.
Yeah, it is a valgus deformation, yeah, because angle is opening outside, yeah. So angle open in the knee joint outward, it is a valgus type of deformation of the knee joint, yeah, or Geno valgus deformation, yeah. So here maybe one of the reason, maybe in this condition, it is sometimes it can be physiological. You can find patient like this, yeah. But what happened? Because this type of deformation, it is very bad because patient it will affect the patient physically. He can't run, yeah. He will feel unstable in every time, yeah. maybe we'll talk about the condition, what it can lead to also in a while. Yeah. So next, after inspection, yeah, we can talk about palpation. Yeah, palpation can reveal local pain, local tenderness. Yeah, palpation can reveal about by palpation you can reveal what tactile sensation. Yeah. Yeah. Next, yeah, so we can see already sensory and motor loss can be determined by palpation. So here we can see different position of the extremity. Yeah. So here we can see a finger. Yeah, is an active position. What condition leads to this wrist drop? If patient came to you with wrist drop, what do you think of? See, he has a wrist drop, right? What is the reason? What do you think? Hello. What condition will cause a wrist drop in patient? He cannot extend his wrist. It will be like this. So what will be the condition that will cause wrist drop?
Lazia.
No. Which nerve innervates the extensors of your muscles of your wrist and hand?
Radial.
So radial nerve, yeah. So radial nerve innervates. So for an example, if patient had a fracture, for an example, you see, patient can have a fracture of middle third diaphysis of a humerus. Middle third diaphysis of humerus. You are so busy, yeah. So I told you in the beginning of the lecture, yeah. Please pay attention how the patient got trauma, yeah, and look and analyze. See, if patient had a hit here and he had a fracture of middle third diaphysis of the humerus. You know, in the middle third diaphysis of the humerus, yeah, radial nerve is located just on the bone only. Yeah, when there is a fracture, for sure there can be high risk for damaging of radial nerve. For sure, should examine what happened to your radial nerve. Yeah, patient, whether the patient can abduct the thumb. Yeah, look whether the patient has wrist drop. Patient can extend his palm or not. Yeah, if patient cannot extend his palm, cannot do abduction of your thumb, please think. Yeah, he not only has fracture, but he has what? Damage to the radial nerve. Yeah, so very important for you. That's what I told you. It's very, very, very important for you to analyze. For you to analyze, yeah. In that localization, what complications can happen if the damage happened? Yeah, so here we can see a person lying down, his foot is turned out. Yeah, so normally when you lie on your bed, how your toes will be? When you lie on your bed, how your toes are going to be? It's going to point towards the roof. Yes or no? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So when you lie down on your bed, normally what happens? Your toes are going to what? Show towards the point towards the roof. Yeah. But now the patient will come to hospital with, imagine the lower limb. Yeah? He will come with externally rotated lower limb. You'll be coming with external rotated lower limb. So you ask the patient to hold back, yeah, and ask him to hold his foot in this way, like the toes pointing towards the roof. Ask him to hold, he will not hold. It will go back. Actually, he can't hold his toe pointing towards the roof. It will once again go back. So what does this suspect? What do you think? What damage happened? Why patient cannot hold his toes pointing towards the roof? Where the damage happened in this patient? What do you think? What happened?
Fracture of femur bone.
Femoral neck. It's an authentic sign. Yeah, please write it down and note it down. If you have fracture of neck of the femur, patient will come to the hospital with externally rotated leg, externally rotated lower leg. If he comes and if you put it back, hold, he cannot hold it. Will once again go back. This is an authentic sign. You can close your eyes. You can close your eyes and tell the patient had fracture of neck of the femur. Okay, doctors. Next thing. Hello. Hello, doctor. So who is this wonderful person in our batch here who is tell him to shut his voice. Hello. Oh my God, 60%. Group number 5, please. Group number 5, please. Anybody else from the group number 5 here? Please tell your group mate too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I told him.
Crazy man. Where is he now?
That I don't know.
Crazy man. Your group mates roaming with somebody, yeah? And listening to lecture. Anyway, good thing is he's listening to lecture. Bad thing is
He's on the way from airport, sir, to Coast.
I understand. Okay, anyway, good that he has interest to listen to lecture. Yeah, so I got disturbed. So we have what happened? Passive posture. Yeah, what is passive posture? That means what happened? Patient cannot extend the do movement by himself or herself, but you can extend. Yeah, forced posture. Yeah, antalgic posture. Yeah, for an example, to relieve pain. Yeah, so that is forced posture already. Yeah, so next thing. We also by inspection can look and can see deformation, yeah. And also what happened, we can also by palpation we can examine the axis of the limb, yeah. So how to find axis of the limb? So here we have a picture, yeah. So please, axis of upper limb, it will start from acromion process, yeah. You can see over here, right? Acromion process until what happens, styloid process of the ulnar bone. Please, if you draw a line, this line is going to pass through the cubital fossa, or we can tell it is it is passing through the cubital fossa, or we have here the head of the radius. Yeah, this is 3 point. This is normal axis of the upper limb, but in some patients it will be going outward. That is valgus angulation. To some people it will be going inside. It will be varus angulation. Yeah, so in elbow joint, in everyone, yeah, we might have slight valgus angulation, like 1 to 12 degree, yeah, 0 to 12 degree. It is allowable. If it is more than that, it is pathology. But the elbow joint, if you have any varus angulation, there is angle opening inside, yeah, it is a pathology. Next thing that we can see in the lower limb, yeah, how to measure the axis, yeah, once again 3-point system, yeah. So we draw a line, so we find patients anterior superior spine, and in between the first and the second toe, when we draw the line, yeah, this line is going through the lateral border of the patella. This is normal axis of the lower limb, yeah. But here we see what is this angular deformation. Who can tell in this patient what is angular deformation called as?
Genu varum.
Yeah, genovarum, yeah, varus angulation, especially very common arthritis, yeah. But if you see sports person, yeah, if you see football player or sports person, physiologically they'll have a little bit of this valgus curve, yeah, it gives more stability when compared with this limb already, yeah, valgus limb, which gives you uncomfortable and instability in walking already, yeah. So we are done already. Next, palpation, yeah, what else we can do? You can see temperature, yeah. Localized pain, humidity, dryness, yeah, disorders of sensitivity, yeah, turgor of the soft tissue, condition of muscles, everything can be found by palpation, yeah. Next, we can determine, yeah, see for an example, yeah, some authentic sign, yeah, you try to palpate. See, everybody palpate this 3-point in your elbow joint, yeah. So we palpate medial malleolar, medial epicondyle, let's palpate, yeah, medial epicondyle, lateral epicondyle, and olecranon process, yeah. These 3 points, when your elbow is flexed, it forms a triangle. When you extend, these 3 points are going to be in the straight line. So this line and triangle, Gunter, is will help you in outpatient department to detect whether patient has dislocation of elbow joint or not. The same thing you can see in Rosen-Ellington line. A line is drawn from anterior iliac spine to ischial tuberosity. A great trochanter should be on this line, yeah, when your hip joint is flexed to 135 degree. Yeah, but if it is not, yeah, we talk about what happened, dislocation of hip joint. Yeah, this can be seen also. Yeah, the next goes your auscultation. Yeah, of course you will auscultate the lungs. Yeah, you look for any other conditions, yeah. So maybe for an example, we can also auscultate, yeah, the zone of fracture. Yeah, maybe in some place you can hear crepitus. Yeah, maybe in osteoarthritis. Yeah, we can see crepitation when you're moving the joint. Maybe you can put stethoscope and see click also. Yeah, like clicks can be also felt when there is injury of meniscus in your knee joint. Yeah, tendinogenitis once again give crepitus sound along the projection of the inflamed tendons of the muscles. Next thing that we can go, next thing, yeah, that we can go, yeah, as we go forward, yeah, examination of what a function of a musculoskeletal system. Yeah, so here comes already every joint, very important. Yeah, every joint has its own range of movement. So our job is to know the range of movement. How to know this range of movement? Yeah, we use a device called as goniometer. But if you have smartphone, yeah, in your app, in your Google Play or Apple Store, you can download a goniometer that is available in Apple Play or Google Store. Yeah, Google Play. Yeah, you can find goniometer. Yeah, it's a virtual goniometer. It's very useful also. Yeah, so what we do, we try to measure the range of movement. So every joint has its own movements. Yeah, so for an example, the shoulder joint, what we can do abduction, adduction. We can do flexion, extension. Yeah, so we should examine. So if, for example, what is flexion? Yeah, increasing of angle, extension, decreasing of angle. Yeah, abduction, moving away from the body. Yeah, moving towards your body. Adduction. Yeah, so every joint will have its own movement. So shoulder joint, it is multi-axial joint, so we might have almost all the movements. Yeah. So you can flex your shoulder joint without moving your girdle. You can flex until 180-degree extension. You can extend until 60 to 70 degree. Yeah. Abduction 90-degree without using your girdle. Yeah. With shoulder girdle, it's clavicle and scapula, you can abduct until 180 degrees. Adduction is 0. In the same way, what happened? You can do external rotation and internal rotation. Yeah. So you'll be writing it according to this formula. Yeah. Actively, how much you can flex. And then 0 is a neutral position of the limb. Then how much you can extend. And passively, that means what happened? Doctor, you will examine, yeah? You will move the patient joint and examine how much flexion, neutral position, how much extension. Yeah, so you'll write it in this scheme. Yeah, range of movement in any joint already. So let's go to elbow joint. Elbow joint has only, you can move in 2 planes. You can either flex and extend. And next movement that we have is what? Supination and pronation. Yeah, these are the movements that we can find in the elbow joint, and there is no other movements. Yeah, next. Next we have what? Wrist joint. Yeah. So wrist joint, what we can do? Palmar flexion, dorsiflexion. We have what? Ulnar deviation and radial deviation. We have ulnar deviation and radial deviation. Yeah. So schematically, we can use goniometer to find out. Yeah. So this is your job. Yeah. So I think this semester maybe we'll have virtual classes. Yeah. Next semester when you have practical classes, please work with your teachers. Yeah. And please learn to measure the range of movement. So here it is nowadays what happened in busy practice. Yeah, normally by inspection you already know what is 90-degree, yeah, and what is 180-degree. Yeah, so yeah, some angle between 90-degree, you know already, you divide it is 45-degree. Yeah, so some angle between 45 to 90, you can calculate in your mind already. So if you want accurately, you can use goniometer. Yeah, but if you are very good in mathematics, in geometry, yeah, especially to measure your, this is a protector. Yeah, this is a mobile protector. Yeah, so if you know mathematics very well, geometry, degrees very well, yeah, you can, with your eyes, you can guess already how much degree the patient is making the movement. Yeah, so this table is very important. Yeah, so every joint you should know range of movements. Why do we measure the range of movement? Because after this, so we can see, yeah, exactly what we discussed. Yeah, flexion, yeah, neutral position and extension in the foot. Yeah, flexion, neutral position and extension. Yeah, so we write. Why do we write all these things? Because we have to come to some conclusion. What conclusion? Patient can have ankylosis. That means there is complete absence of movement in the joint. Patient can have rigidity. That means what happened? Patient can only move the joint only 5 degrees. Yeah, there is more present. Contraction means what happened? Where I can flex 90 degree, I can only flex. I'm only flexing only 10 degrees. Yeah, so this is called contraction. That means what happened? Limitation of movement. That means I can flex more, I can flex and extend more than 5 degree, but not completely. That is called contracture. Next, we can have superfluous mobility. Yeah, so this is called increased range of movement. Yeah, so some people in your batch maybe have the superfluous mobility. Yeah, we grade it according to Bayton scoring system. There is a 9-point scoring system according to the author Bayton. We'll see. Let's see. So this 9-point scoring system is based on. Let's see. Let's examine you all. Yeah, let's do a small exercise. Yeah, let's do some small refreshment exercise. Yeah, so please, in your group, how many of you can flex? You look here. Yeah, can you look here? Yeah, how many of you can flex and touch with your thumb, your forearm? Flexing and touching with your thumb, forearm. Anybody in your batch can do?
I can, sir.
Please, can you do it and show? See, look, if your friend can do. Yeah. See, doctors, can you all see your friend? Yeah. Hello.
Yes, doctor.
So Tabitha, you should talk so everybody will see it on a big screen maybe. You all can see. Yes. So this is, can you do it on both your limb, both your hand? Can you do? So you see, so we have a friend that can get 1 + 1. Yeah, 2 points she gets, 1 for right, 1 for left. Yeah. Next, second point. Hyper extension of your little finger. Yeah, I can see, for an example, I can extend maybe a little bit. Yeah, some people can extend the little finger until what happened? They can flex and touch the. I had people in your senior batch. You know, they are in second semester. Yeah, when during lecture they flex until what happened? The little finger. What happened? Little finger can go and touch. Anybody can do like this in your batch? No, got hyper extension of little finger. Anybody has? No.
Yes, sir. I can do.
Please, can you show?
1 second, sir.
Okay. Take your time. So you see one more person. I think that means he also can flex and touch. So please, can you see? Look at him. He is doing a magic. Can you speak and do, Ajay?
Yes, sir. I can do so.
Do. Because everybody should see you. Yeah. Can you see this, doctor?
Yes, sir.
So you see,
Yes.
can you do it on both? Ajay? Can you do it on both the limb or only in one limb?
Sir, only in one limb, only left hand.
So he gets only 1 point. Yeah, some people can do it on both. How about flexing and touching your forearm? Can you do it, Ajay? See, he can do it. One, another side, other hand. You see, he also gets. You see, he got 3 points. Can you imagine? Yeah, he already got 3 points. Yeah, and he is very supernatural in your group. Yeah, so he can flex and touch already. Yeah. Now we have your group mate who got 3 points and 2 points. Next movement is hyper extension of elbow joint. You see, normally I can extend my elbow joint to straight 0 degree. Yeah, but somebody can extend the elbow joint more than 0 degree. Yeah, it will be a little bit go down. Yeah, who can do hyper extension of elbow joint? It will be like a curve. It will be like curved down. Who can do? Anybody can next hyper extension. See, 0 degree. And if you can make your forearm go a little bit down, so there will be called what? Hyper extension of your elbow joint. Yeah. So if you can do on the right, 1 point. If you can do it on the left elbow, 1 more point. Yeah. So 1 and 1. So check it. So already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Next 2 more points is to your knee joint. Hyper extension. So if you stand straight, yeah, they make an arch. So hyper extension of your knee joint. Yeah. So 1 point on right, 1 point on left. Then the 6th one is what? Then the last point, that is the 9th point, is normally what happens when you stand, you can flex and touch your toes, yeah, with your fingertips. Yes or no? When you stand, yeah, you can flex and touch your toes with your fingertips. This is normal, everybody can do. But these people can flex and make their palm touch the ground. Who is able to do this? You know, you're not going to do. Who can do it? You can stand straight and then bend and touch the ground with your palm. Who can do it? Tabata, you can do it, yeah or no? It's not
Not
possible
yet,
for you.
sir. I'm training for this, but not yet.
You will do it. But you see, this is called what happened. So some people no need to train, yeah, naturally they will do it, yeah. So in my last batch of students, yeah, they normally did it, yeah. So this is 9 points, yeah, according to Baton. 2 for flexing and touching your thumb, forearm, 2 points for hyperextension of little finger, 2 points for elbow joints, 2 points for knee joint, and 1 point for flexing and touching the standing straight and flexing and touching the ground with the palm. Yeah, so 9 points. So if you get more than 3 points, you are actually what happened considered as superfluous. Why these people? Do you know why these people have superfluous mobility? Why? Any idea? Do you know why? Because of hypercollagenosis. There is collagen in the joint, yeah, collagen, yeah, there is hypercollagenosis. So in the capsule, there is what capsule of the joint, any joint, they have hypercollagenosis. So because of that, what happened? Their joint capsule is what more elastic than normal, yeah. Is it good or bad? Good, yeah, because why? They can do amazing things what other people cannot do, yeah. So this is a plus point. So they'll be standing unique, yeah. For an example, Ajay will come and give a bet to anyone, yeah. Please, if you can try to flex and touch like how Ajay is doing, yeah, your batchmate, yeah, there is Ajay from group number 21. He will tell, if you can do like this, I'll give you $10,000. Nobody can do it. Of course, he'll win all the dollars, yeah. So something like this. So they are super active, yeah, supernatural, yeah. But is it bad? Yeah, at some point it is bad. When it will be bad? For an example, if you take shoulder joint, yeah, very frequently dislocated joint in our body, yeah, shoulder joint, yeah. See, if you take a person who is normal, in order for you to dislocate this shoulder joint, he needs 100% of force to dislocate the joint. But if you take a person who is superfluous, maybe 60 to 70% of traumatizing force can cause dislocation. Understand? So easily they can injure a joint, especially when they are involved in sports. Understand? So that's a bad thing that we should see in this patient. You understand? So rest all, everything is fine. They can enjoy and they will have extraordinary life. Especially you can see people with superfluous mobility. They are in what gymnastics. Yeah, they go play for their country, and what happened? They earn gold, silver, and everything in Olympics. Yeah, so it is good in one way. Yeah, but a little bit bad in the other way, because for them it is causing what happened? Inability. Next thing that we should see is pathological mobility. What is this pathological mobility? Movement in any abnormal anatomical axis. That means what happens? Can we do abduction or adduction of the elbow joint? We can't. Yeah, we can't abduct or adduct the joint. So patient came with abduction or adduction movement of the elbow joint. This is a pathological mobility. The knee joint, can we do abduction or adduction? We cannot do. Can we do, see, if I take a phalange, yeah, if I take interphalangeal joint, yeah, that we can see over here in this picture, yeah. So I can't do abduction or adduction movement in my interphalangeal joint. If I can do, once again, it's a pathological mobility. Movement in abnormal anatomical axis, yeah, for that joint. This is pathological, yeah. And next is what happened. Next condition is called as normal, yeah, where we see normal range of movement. Yeah, there we call it as normal range of movement. So only we check what happened, range of movements. So to put conclusion in the joint concretely. So next thing, you should know also how to measure length of the limb. Yeah. So for an example, in the upper limb, that is upper limb, yeah, we can measure the whole length. Yeah, where is the? We can measure the whole length, yeah, from once again from acromion until what happened, tip of the middle finger. And normally we go until what happened, once again, styloid process of the ulnar bone. Individual bone length, yeah, acromion to olecranon process to styloid process of the ulnar bone. This is the individual bone length already. Yeah? So we discussed already. Next, for lower limb, we have 2 points of origin. Yeah, so we can start either from anterior superior iliac spine, or we can start from greater trochanter. Any one of these points we can use. See here, we can see they start from greater trochanter. Yeah. So if you are going to start from anterior superior iliac spine, it's called relative length of lower limb. We're going to start from a greater trochanter. Yeah. We call it as absolute length. So both will go until what happened? Medial malleolus. Yeah, medial malleolus. Normally, I prefer students to measure from greater trochanter to lateral malleolus, so they don't. It's easy for them to understand. So from greater trochanter to lateral malleolus, and then what happened? Individual segment, greater trochanter to interarticulating space, Next, interarticulating space to lateral malleolus. So lateral malleolus is very easy. So you will remember, if you go medial malleolus, you'll get confused. So whole length, there can be relative. It starts from anterior suprailiac spine until what happened lateral malleolus, or absolute length. It will start from retrochanter until what happened lateral malleolus. Why it is called relative? Because hip joint normally starts, femur will start from here only, approximately here, a little bit above, so only it is relative. Absolute because concretely retrochanter is in the projection of what? Head of the femur, so it is approximately concrete length. Yeah, so if you talk about measurement of length of thigh, thigh can have two lengths. One, it will start from anterior suprailiac spine, another will start from greater trochanter. If you're going to measure from here to here, it will be called as relative length. If you're going to measure from here to here, it will be called as what happened? Absolute length. For leg, there is only one length. It is called length of the leg from interarticulating space to lateral malleolus. Understood, doctors? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you should compare and tell, make some conclusion. What is anatomical shortening? Anatomical shortening happens when there is fracture of bones, or for an example, in the leg, yeah, in the lower limb, femur fracture, yeah, whole length of the bone will decrease. Plus what happened? Individual bone length also will decrease. If whole length and individual bone length decrease, we call the shortening as anatomical shortening. What is relative shortening? It happens when patient has dislocation. For an example, patient had dislocation in the elbow joint. He got dislocation. When I measure the whole length, when I measure, it will be decreased. But when I measure the individual length, yeah, individual length of the bone, it is same. It is same. Yeah, it doesn't change. So what happened? This is called relative shortening. Next, seemingly shortening happens when patient has contracture. Why I say contracture? You see, I ask the patient to stand straight, he stands straight. Both the limbs are good. When I ask him to flex, he will flex like this. He cannot flex this limb completely. He cannot extend this limb like this. He'll be flexing like this. So that means what happened? In this limb, he had contracture. So because of contracture, that means what happened? In one plane, everything is normal, but in another plane, because of contracture, yeah, there is shortening. Yeah, so we call that thing as relative shortening. We call that as seemingly shortening. So I hope we discussed about this thing. Yeah, next thing. See, once again, what happens when you have one limb shorter than the other limb? What happens? It leads to pelvic tilt. Yeah, you see, when he's standing straight, everything is looking normal to you, but actually it is not, because what is happening here? He has pelvic tilt. Yeah, it will lead to scoliosis into this person. So for sure, yeah, we have to put orthopedic shoes or correction surgery so that what happens? His height is made normal. So only what happens? He will never develop scoliosis. If not, he will have scoliosis already. Yeah, circumference of the extremities, especially, very good to measure, to evaluate. Got edema or muscle wasting. Yeah. So scoliosis, yeah, we discussed. Next, there are different types of gaits, yeah, especially gaits also helps us to analyze what happened, the degree of trauma. Yeah, so here some examples are given. Yeah, patient with fracture, paralysis of quadriceps, how the patient is going to walk. Yeah, lesion of common perineal nerve. Yeah, how patient is going to walk. He's going to go walk behind. Yeah, he'll be walking like back only, he can't walk front. Yeah. Next, what happened with patient with poliomyelitis? Yeah, of course, the normal gait of a person is completely damaged already. Next, I want to tell you about signs of fracture. You see, we defined in the last lecture about fracture. We defined what is fracture. Yeah. So if you have a fracture will give this general signs and specific signs. What are the general signs of fracture? Please try to remember this slide. Yeah, very important. Yeah. So if you have a fracture, you will have general signs. What are the general signs? There is pain, there is swelling, bruise, increase of local temperature, and lesion of function. These are all general signs. It's also called as signs of inflammation. Yeah, this sign is present even for bruise, even for sprain, even for dislocation. Everything is present. So if you have pain, nobody can tell you have fracture. You understand? So only it is called general signs. Very important. This is called general signs. Now let's go to specific signs. They are characteristic of fracture. The signs, the specific signs, yeah, significant signs. This is only present in fracture. What is the first sign? So there is what? Appearance of bony fragment in a wound. Yeah, normally there is